Hi, I'm Jim. Welcome to the Unbound Performance Podcast, where we explore the world of sports and performance mindset training.
And I'm Caroline. Each week we talk about the strategies, habits, and mental framework that help us to excel. Let's get into today's episode.
Do you remember that, or do you need me to go over?
I remember.
Okay. And then Chapter 9 is the meaning of competition. What is the point? And
I liked that one.
yeah, it was good. The inner game off the court is the meaning, and how
Can't
it
win
can
the inner
apply,
game.
how you can use like tennis to improve your life or whatever. Learn how to concentrate off the court, just like on the court. Yada yada. Then he goes all Zen and higher consciousness, self 3. And I will say, you have to reach an unbelievably high level of self-actualization to get to kind of approach to all. I mean, the end game of this, where I can just, love performing, and if I win, I win. If I lose, I learned.
Well, it was like in the example. I guess we're recording now. In the example of, we're starting with the last chapter, but whatever. That I don't know her name. The young girl, 14-year-old tennis player that was playing. I remember something you don't.
I don't remember.
No, some 14-year-old tennis player who was playing very high level competitive tennis and winning, and someone was interviewing her and saying like, aren't you so nervous to play against these older women or whatever? And they kept it, the way it sounded in the book was that the interviewer kept trying to like come at different angles to get her to say like, yes, I'm terrified, this is crazy. And she just kept saying like she was so grateful. And then not long after telling that story, Gallwey was saying like something about like we all know what happened to her now. I don't know. It sounded like basically she was that way when she was 14, but something happened along the way as she progressed. And I think that's the thing, right? Is like that I think you can have moments of that, like, although I don't know if at 14 if it's truly self-actualization or just naivety.
Yeah,
but it's I'm with you. I think the reality of achieving this in all things all the time and is another level.
The way we are wired from birth, our culture, the way we're raised, the way we're coached. It's, I mean, we do like winning matters.
Yeah.
Like, that's the title of the book, and I don't know how successful we'll be in talking people out of that. And I'm whatever, it mattered to me. It still matters. It matters when I'm watching a game. Matters when kids play. All of it. But I think if we can just get to a point where it doesn't determine our worth, it's not our identity, and it's not the reason that we are living. Then I think that is reachable, and then we can become more and more like that. But I mean, I don't see myself getting there like where I'm the equivalent of the Dalai Lama or something. I just sit on top of a mountain and waiting for people to come ask me questions.
I think as I was listening towards the end, so I think probably late chapter 9, he was talking about if you go into competition trying to provide the best competition to your competitor that you can possibly give. That I think when I was thinking about the mindset of being able to just like play freely all the time, I think that to me feels unattainable on some level to its fullest degree. But the trying to be the best competition for your competitor at all times felt like a switch you could try to flip in a way to flip the point of view and be able to maybe get into closer to that zone.
Well, then we're switching our perspective where we haven't put so much meaning and value on the outcome of this event that it creates anxiety and self-loathing and things like that. And if instead we can come at it from a sense of this competitive event has value and meaning because it's a way that I can serve my opponent. It's a way I can learn how to be better at all of these things, where there's like improved concentration and how that can help me in many other aspects of my life. So we're using, he literally says in the book that he used tennis to get better at being able to concentrate.
Yeah. Not the other way around, which I thought was an interesting thing to point out as well.
So, but I think in all of these, I don't care what it is. Like if we think we're going to find some emotional, psychological, spiritual pot of gold at the end of some performance rainbow, we are mistaken. Like that is not, there's just been so many people who have reached their goals and then they still aren't satisfied. So I think that's where trying to get self one and self two to be in harmony more, where self one kind of guides but then steps back and allows self two to whatever, let it happen and things like that, then we have a chance to really perform freely and as well as our skill set allows us to. And it's bringing self one to heal. That's the trick because our ego's involved, and then if we're not performing well, somehow it's not just that we're not performing well in tennis, but it's like somehow we're not worthy of love and respect. And
Right.
it's just, I mean, ultimately, like if you're a businessman and you're out with clients on the golf course, it shouldn't, like how well you play golf has
Right.
nothing to do with what kind of person you are, the quality of
Yeah,
person
that's the
you are.
purpose of that encounter.
But nonetheless,
Yeah.
we
Get seated out
we
there.
tend to take a different
Yeah.
view of that when it comes to ourselves. And um, I just I don't think that's a really good way to approach the things we're involved in. They're supposed to be enjoyable opportunities to learn, grow, compete, bring out the best in ourselves, bring out the best in others. I mean, I've said this before. I mean, I was very fortunate in terms of the teams that I got to coach. We won a bunch. And if all the teams that I coached were not good,
Yeah.
and I had a losing record and never won anything, I don't know that people would give two hoots about my opinion on any of this.
Sure.
So I understand that. I mean, you get to say the same thing. Like, yeah, we won a bunch of championships when I was playing.
Yeah.
Like, we hardly ever lost. So I am realistic enough to be able to look back on that, even though sometimes when I was going through it, I probably let it define me too much
Yeah.
as a person and found too much of my identity and worth in that. Well, no, probably about it. I did. Thankfully, I didn't stay there, I would say. And looking back, I mean, I was never the kind who was like, if it wasn't for me, you guys would be nothing. That wasn't it
Right.
at all. But I can look back and say we, as coaches, we did our jobs,
Yeah.
but we were also like very fortunate who came through our
Yeah.
program, the kind of players and people we had. And I was very fortunate, even right down to what assistant coaches I had and
Yeah.
who was willing to work with us. And so all of that is kind of out of your control, and I don't deserve any credit for that. I can definitely look back with like a sense of satisfaction. Like we try to do a good job, try to serve those
Yeah.
playing for us well. But it also doesn't have much to do with what kind of person I am. And sometimes I wish I would have been a better person, no doubt. And that's, as you kind of move on, I think that's becomes more and more what you want to help others learn sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you want to keep learning
Right.
yourself.
The the idea about competitor and giving them the best competition that they can face that day. I liked that because we talk a lot about making all of your purpose of things being in service of others.
Right. That's
And I
good.
think on
Yep.
on a team, you think about, okay, if I have that mindset of being in service to others, I'm in service to my teammates because those are people on your side. And you started this question with, is your competitor your friend or your enemy?
Yep.
And depending on how you look at it, like if they're a friend, if you're going to be feeling like you want to give them the best competition because that's going to make them better and make them play their best, which is going to make you return the favor, right? But I just think when we talk about the idea of being in service for others, I think especially in a team setting, we think about it being in service to our coaches, our fans, our teammates. Everyone is on our side wearing our color.
Right.
But as soon as he said, like, to flip the switch of giving your competitor the best competition you can possibly deliver, well, suddenly you're now in service of that person, even though it's a win-loss situation. It's a win-win for both if you both deliver that effort.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this book before in this setting, but that was one of the great takeaways when I read Sadaharu O's book, Zen in Baseball, I think is the title of it. But he was a very famous Japanese baseball player and holds the career record for most professional home runs. But he talks in there about how they viewed their competitors, and they were partners in this exercise where they brought out the best in each other. So there was automatic, like respect and appreciation, even gratitude for the part that the other team or your opponent played in this. And that's very powerful to me. I wish
Yeah.
I'd have had a better sense of that.
Yeah, that hit. I was like, that's a really cool way to think about it.
Yeah.
Like that, we shake hands at the end, and typically
Right.
if you lose, good game, good game.
Yeah.
Or you're crying. Like,
Yeah.
but I think the point of probably the origination of good game to your competitor was like, good work. That was fun to play against you. Or that was a decent, good effort on your part and made me bring out the best in me. And I think trying to, again, this is not something where suddenly you're just like, oh, I just think this way now and everything is golden.
Right.
But starting to think in that mindset of your competitor not being just the enemy for the win or loss. Like Gallwey talked about, you can lose the match and still have won in your eyes.
Yeah, he talked about that himself.
Yeah,
like,
yes. Talking about playing,
yep.
he was saying, I don't remember the specific scenario, but he was saying like he was going through what was the worst and best that could happen playing this certain competitor, and he was like, well, I could lose. I don't know, score
6-0,
6-0, 6-0, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would go back, but I would just go home, and people would say, how'd it go? And you would say, well, I lost. And they would say like, oh, well, but you played that guy. He's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, well, if I won 6-0, 6-0, just the difference of those. And I thought going through that, he was just saying like if he had won 6-0, 6-0, or if he lost 6-0, both scenarios, he's like, well, I could have gone home and said I won. Because in my mind, if I lost 6-0, 6-0, but I gave it my all, then in his mind he won. I mean,
right.
And then same in the example in the end of the book when he was like got in a car accident in the snow and was walking.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And he's saying,
crazy.
he was like, I had driven. He was like 20 minutes from the last city. He's on a 2-lane dark road with no. He said there was no lights, no phone poles even to like give him the sense that he had anything nearby, and it was snowing and ice cold.
He didn't have enough on either.
Like, he all he has like his blazer for
jacket,
a suit coat or something like that, and kind of had that sudden like I might not make it out here, I might freeze to death kind of thing. And it went from like he took a few steps, he was worried to take too many steps because he was going to tire himself out or get too far from the car. But when he decided like, and he says he's like, it's not that I was like felt like I was necessarily facing death, but when I accepted the possibility of it, he said he took off running for 40 minutes straight and ended up finding a house with a light on or something. But it was a very interesting story for him to end on. I wasn't expecting something like that, but when you accept the situation, he was talking about somewhere in 9, I think, about talking about becoming the person who, when everyone else's heads are spinning, you can keep yours straight.
Yeah, you're not freaking out.
You're not totally losing it, and accepting the situation is what is required to be that person, to be able to say, okay, you see what happened, you evaluate what happened. Everyone else is losing their minds because they're like, how did this possibly happen? But if you can take the step back and just observe and see that was more of the sort of superpower in that moment.
Yeah, he quoted the Kipling, when all around you are losing their heads and you can keep yours.
That was the one.
And it's perhaps the most indispensable tool for man in modern times is the ability to remain calm in the midst of rapid and unsettling changes. So he termed it unfreakability, where you kind of can manage those. Yeah. And that's where, he talks about, like, you learn how to do this in a sporting environment. You can apply it, for really bigger and better things.
Right.
Now, that's not to diminish the pursuit of excellence in whatever we're doing. That's not his point. But the point is that we can perform much closer to our full capabilities if we're playing freely. We've removed judgment as a result. Self-1, self-2 are in harmony. And the end where he just takes off and runs unconsciously for 40 minutes and is freezing cold, that's the point. Like, when he was worried and thinking he might just lay down and die out there.
Yeah, like he gained access to a whole new level of effort and ability.
So, I mean, I think that's ultimately where we're going with this. The less control self-1 has, the more self-2 gets to fully express.
Yeah, like self-1 literally limits self-2. Yep. It's not just gets in the way, but it limits, which is where that self-1 got out of the way for him and he took off running in the cold for 40 minutes.
Yep.
Like, you actually expose levels of you that are otherwise blocked.
I remember the first time I read that story, I was like, whoa. But that's, the world of sports is filled with unequivocal performances like that. And this just happened to be one that, saved his life, I guess. But that's this whole pursuit of self-actualization, just becoming fully ourselves and the best version of ourselves. I think that I was listening to a podcast with a another performance psychologist the other day, and he had a book come out in January, and he was talking the same thing. Like fundamentally, if we're becoming a better person across the board, then our whatever our sporting endeavors are, they're better served by that. And it's so easy to miss that and think that I just need to get better at shooting free throws or slap shots or whatever. Instead, obviously, all that matters. But the more you can move towards something beyond yourself, something transcendent that is more meaningful than I led the conference in free throw percentage this year. Like, I think that's the immediate pressure of our entire worth being centered on whether we make or miss the shot is somewhat diffused. And then it's all in the service of learning and growing. And I'm still Kobe Bryant when he's talking about failure, how he doesn't compute for him. Like, either way, I am learning and I'm coming back the next day to work as hard as I can to keep learning, keep getting better, whether I made the free throws or I missed the free throws. And I think that's a great way to look at it. But it takes, like, to your point, like, you don't just walk into it. You have to, your inputs need to be guarded. It means the people you're around, the things you read and watch, never mind the things you say to yourself. And you want to surround yourself with people who are going to facilitate that kind of process and progress. And that's why we like doing this. Love doing this, because we're just one little candle out there that's trying to shed some light and help. And it's it's very meaningful. I know I did want to, he had in this 50th anniversary edition, just came out.
By the way, this is where you should look.
I know I should do that.
Look at the
I always look at the computer like there. But he says, at 85, I am still discovering who I am as a human being. There is nothing like being alive, especially as we become increasingly aware of the importance of choosing what we value. The knowledge of the heart is so often forgotten, yet in my experience, exploring it gives me the most joy and the most sense of fulfillment. That is what winning is all about. There's a reason I've read that book a bunch, and I've read every other one of his books. I just think there's so much wisdom and perspective there in terms of not diminishing the importance of what we're doing, but elevating everything that we do. And as a result, ensuring our chances to produce, top level performance.
Yeah. We can cut this or not, but I wasn't sure I knew that you had said this wasn't this is hardly a tennis book.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, how could you possibly deliver a message without it being a tennis book, right? But I, even as a non-tennis player, I don't even know what six love means. I don't know how you get to six love. But even as a non-tennis player, I think the consistency of the tennis examples throughout the book helped solidify put all the pieces together of what his point was trying to get across. So I would just say, for anyone who's interested in reading this, it's not. Right. Yes, they talk about tennis. They're going to use tennis terms and phrases, but you don't have to know what they are to understand the message.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unbound Performance Podcast.
Your support helps us continue to build our community. If you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and share.